know I love to be wined and dined in a Chicago cafe. The chefs are the best and the menus are so gourmet. The best cuisine on the scene is in Chicagoland, USA. Great chefs of Chicago. Great chefs of Chicago. World-class cooking, continental style. The recipe will make you linger a little while. Great chefs of Chicago.
Welcome to Great Chefs of Chicago, a television masterclass with chefs of some of the finest restaurants in the Chicago metropolitan area. This time, the Cottage and Chef Carolyn Buster. Born on a farm near Hammond, Indiana, she was the youngest of 7 girls and began cooking early. As with many of the new generation of American chefs, she did not wend her way through the European apprentice system, but studied here and abroad, then worked a stint with Louis Zathmary of the bakery in Chicago. Chef Buster, with husband and co-owner Jerry, opened the Cottage over a decade ago in Calumet City. It is a curious location for the recreation of a French country inn. Calumet City has traditionally been a manufacturing site for Chicago and has been over the years informally annexed into the Metro Galaxy. It is not exactly Lyon. One food writer described it as the culinary wilds of Chicago. Nevertheless, the Cottage has generated richly deserved critical and customer acclaim while winning Mobile Travel Guide Awards since 1978 and Travel Holiday Awards since 1980.
I became interested in smoking as we were opening the Cottage. We were looking for some equipment and happened to meet a very interesting chef who was an Aztec Indian descendant. And in the back of his little restaurant, he did a lot of smoking. And he used some very interesting spices in that he used many of the Indian spices. And when I first tasted his products, I expected them to taste a little bit like tacos or something of a Mexican taste. And the mixture we have in the butter includes such things as curries, as cumin, as chili powder. And we're going to use these to stuff the ducks. We take a generous amount, kind of rub the inside, leave a lot of it in, and then we're going to take handfuls of the vegetables, pack them in, which is going to keep the ducks very moist throughout the smoking. Celery, carrots, parsley, apples, oranges.
Chopped onions are also added. The spiced butter is flavored with garlic, chili powder, oregano, cumin, coriander, curry, basil, salt, and pepper, along with Worcestershire and red pepper sauces, all blended in a food processor. The ducks are stacked on end in a plastic or stainless steel container and marinate refrigerated overnight in apple cider.
Then we're going to pour the apple cider over and marinate them for 16 to 24 hours. I don't recommend any longer than 24, but I do recommend at least 16 hours in the marinade. If for some reason they don't fit properly or tend to float to the top in whatever container, certainly weight them down with a plate or something that will hold them down in the marinade. We're going to fill the drip pan, which again is a moist smoking process, with some of the marinade. Set it in place. And then we're going to stand the ducks around the sides. Again, we're going to start them breast side out so that they get nice and evenly browned while there's a lot of smoke created from all the moisture being put in. And then we will turn them breast in for the remainder of the smoking period.
Chef Buster smokes the duck 2.5 hours for medium rare. Unless you have a restaurant ventilation system in your kitchen, do your smoking outside. Unpeeled garlic cloves are dipped in corn oil.
Before putting them on, we just put them in the center and leave them on the entire smoking period. And we have a nice pan of juices. Some of the marinade we originally poured in along with all of the juices which have dripped from the ducks. We're going to pour it off and let it settle down for a few minutes. And let the fat come to the top, which then we can skim to prepare the sauce.
The skimmed fat will be used to saute the garlic cloves. The juices are strained through a wet towel.
We're going to reserve just a little of this that we'll put in a blender along with smoked garlic cloves that we've peeled. And we're going to make a puree out of the garlic. Which we're going to add to the sauce. We'll add the spices. I like to add a little cinnamon, little cloves, bay leaves, salt, white pepper.
Also add ground ginger.
And perhaps what may seem unusual, but it gives a nice tartness to the sauce, a little currant jelly. We're just going to let this boil for 15-20 minutes, and then we're going to thicken it ever so slightly with port wine and a little cornstarch.
Remaining smoked garlic cloves are sautéed in fat skimmed from the smoking juices. They are garnish. Cornstarch and port wine are added.
It'll maintain its nice shiny consistency. You can see, although the ducks have been on for 2.5 hours, they remain nicely rare.
If medium rare duck is not your cup of tea, smoke the duck for 4 hours for medium or medium well. The sauce is strained and garlic cloves are added before presentation. Chef Buster processes shallots, which will be sautéed in butter to begin the tarragon butter sauce.
Chop them reasonably fine. They'll be cooked down sufficiently that they will kind of melt into the sauce. Once the butter has melted, I like to put the shallots in with the butter rather than adding the shallots once the butter has started to melt, because this way they kind of melt together.
Fresh tarragon will be added.
At this point, we're not going to add a whole lot of tarragon because we can add a little more later, which will hold the color, but this will give nice taste, and I'm using a tarragon vinegar to go along with it. Once again, we're going to release the flavors at this point and then add the vinegar. And some white wine, and let the mixture cook down. You can see now the butter is starting to brown in the bottom of the skillet, starting to get a rich nut-like color, which again adds taste.
The enormous sea scallops are sautéed quickly and will be wrapped in blanched spinach leaves.
And as I mentioned, we just want to turn the scallops in the butter, coat, seal all the sides, just briefly cook them. Actually, the scallops will be totally cooked by the time the scallops are hot in the middle. So we really don't want to cook them at this point because we want to put them in the oven and steam them in the spinach leaves. The purpose for using the spinach is not only for flavor, but for color and eye appeal. And it also retains the moisture in the scallop. In this case, where we have a very big one, we'll put a couple leaves on this side before we fold the leaves up. And again, just press the leaves to the scallop. You can see now that the wine and vinegar has just about reduced down to the point that we can start adding the butter. We're going to add about a pound, maybe a pound and a half of butter. Again, the amount depends on the amount of reduction, how much liquid remained before the butter was started to be added. Of the sauce being together, in this case, I don't particularly want it very thick. The more butter you add, the thicker it's going to get. We're going to stop and we're going to add some creme fraiche.
A bit of the tarragon beurre blanc is ladled into the bottom of the pan. The scallops go into a 450-degree oven for 8 to 10 minutes, covered with parchment paper. More freshly chopped tarragon is added to the sauce before presentation. Three kinds of caviar complete the assembly.
The caviars that I'm using are all American caviars: sturgeon caviar from Wisconsin, whitefish golden caviar, and red salmon caviars.
The cottage schnitzel is a signature dish. The batter coating the pork scallops is 2 eggs, 2 tablespoons of flour and Parmesan cheese, 1/2 cup milk, chopped parsley, nutmeg, salt, and pepper.
We choose to use pork tenderloin for this particular dish. We have, over the years, made it with veal. I've had guests write to me saying they've made it with chicken. The batter certainly adapts itself well to fish, using the same basic procedure, dipping it in the batter, sautéing, and finishing with lemon butter. We've removed the false fillet from the tenderloin. We're going to scrape away the top surface just to expose the silver skin. We're going to loosen it, and we're going to pull the silver skin right off. Pork tenderloins never come, or I should say rarely come, pre-trimmed. But it's a very easy job to do. Takes at most maybe 5 minutes. And it's a wonderful cut of meat. And we're going to pound them into even-shaped medallions. And as you can see, I just folded in that little piece that was loose. If you keep turning in the edges as you're pounding, the texture of the meat is very soft, so it's very easily pounded. We're just going to dip them lightly in flour first. It's plain flour, it is not seasoned at all. Just to lightly coat them, shake them off, and put them in the batter. At this point, it's very important to let the schnitzels fry until you see them starting to brown around the edges. If you try to move them ahead of time, the batter is going to fall off and you're not going to have a nice finished product. When you see it beginning to brown around the edges, and you'll see a little bit of, you can loosen it from the bottom and again, maybe spin it around so that it's cooking evenly on all sides. It's very important that they're only turned once and that they're brown enough once you begin to turn them, because if you try to move them too quickly or too soon, the batter's going to fall off. You can see now it's brown and crispy around the edges, and it's going to be brown on the other side. Simply deglaze the pan with the fresh lemon juice. The amount of lemon juice really depends on the size of the skillet and the amount of butter used. The butter, of course, is determined by the size of the skillet. You want them to be generously cooked in the butter. Which then provides enough sauce for the finished product. Interesting recipe, and one that has been very, very popular over the years at the cottage. We have many guests who come and absolutely refuse. In fact, I'm quite certain they haven't tasted any of our other desserts. They continually order this particular dessert when we have it on the menu. It's a dessert that is also, although we have used a recipe from the Hotel Allard in Paris, it's a type of dessert that's also very popular in England, and they call it a summer fool. It's made, as the English think, like a pudding, although there's no pudding consistency to it, but the cake is not at all baked. It is only refrigerated, and it has very simple ingredients, which are bread, butter, sugar, and raspberries. You want to generously butter the inside of a mold. I'm using a springform mold, and because I'm using it, you need to make sure that you coat the inner rim where the bottom and the sides come together very generously with butter, which will seal that rim as the cake is chilled. Once buttered, we're going to add a generous amount of sugar. Twirl the sugar around to coat the sides and just shake it evenly. And then we're going to start placing pieces of bread. It's easier to work with bread if it's a day old. If it's too fresh, it's very difficult to cut. What you want to do is just push the pieces of bread into the mold. You can't push them together too tightly. It needs to be as tight as possible and completely covered. If you have a little hole, simply tear off a piece of bread and add to it. It's not important to completely spread the butter to every surface. You want a few holes because that is where all the juice from the raspberries are going to soak through and soak into all the bread. If you totally seal off any corners or cracks, the juice has nowhere to go and you're going to have bread remaining. Then once again, we're going to put a generous amount of sugar and then a generous amount of raspberries. And you want to use the juice. This time of the year, fresh raspberries are not available, and we use fresh frozen raspberries, which are packed with just enough sugar to create the juice, which is very desirable. If you're using fresh berries, then they must be sugared and let sit for a few minutes to get the juice coming out. And raspberries. It may appear that I'm overflowing the mold that I'm using. You want that effect because you're going to weight this down and press it in, and it's going to compact. So you want the top to be slightly rounded. And by the time it is weighted and chilled, all that juice is absorbed by the bread, and that's what gives the pudding consistency. And again, remember that what we're working with now is going to ultimately be the bottom. So it's not too important how many pieces, and in reality, you can use any number of pieces to make the cake because it will all compress together. We're going to take a piece of saran, cover it, twisting the saran as we go around to make a nice tight seal. And then simply take any flat surfaced, right here we're using the bottom of another sized springform pan. It really doesn't matter what, so long as you have a nice flat surface, press down hard on it, and then put a weight. You can use a can of canned goods, anything that would be heavy enough. We usually use a stack of plates. Simply put it in the refrigerator to chill. I recommend at least 6 hours or as long as overnight. Once the cake has been thoroughly weighted and chilled, you can unmold by using a process of hot towels to warm the outside of the mold. Then simply release it. And then as we do, we pour a little more sugar over it and strain. And strain a little of the raspberry juice from the raspberries that weren't needed. And simply rub it in, which creates a nice glaze over the outside.
Raspberry cake is served with sour cream sweetened with brown sugar. Jerry and Carolyn Buster recommend Pinot Noir with the smoked duck, a Sauvignon Blanc with the scallops, a Riesling with the Schnitzel, and Mum's Cordon Rouge with the raspberry cake.
And now, dinner is served. Join us next time for more cooking excitement. This menu compliments of Carolyn Buster, another great chef of Chicago.
You'll always find them in Chicagoland. You'll learn all their tricks. You'll understand why eating is kicked in Chicagoland. Come wine and dine where love began. Great chef, great food, great wine in Chicagoland. Yeah, Chicagoland.